remains of former President Muhammadu Buhari were laid to rest in his residence in Daura, Katsina State on Tuesday evening at a solemn ceremony witnessed by President Bola Tinubu, Vice President Kashim Shettima, former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, members of the late president's family, close relatives, and Emir of Daura, top government officials, political party representatives, members of the diplomatic corps. The funeral prayer conducted according to Islamic rites was led by former Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Professor Isa Ali Pantami. President Tinubu received condolences at the residence of the deceased from high-profile dignitaries who came to pay their last respects. The burial was well attended by major stakeholders from all the parts of the country who went to pay their last respects to the late president. Joining us on this show this morning to talk about the life and times of President Muhammadu Buhari, his impact on the APC as a leader, and his constant memo to Buhari insisting on the direction the party should go, is Salihu Lukman, former National Vice Chairman of the All Progressive Congress Northwest. He will also discuss why he had to resign from the APC and the prospect in the coalition. Great to have you, sir. And our commiserations once again.
Thank you, Rufai.
But the question this morning is, Alhaji Buba Galadima was here yesterday, and he said the same thing you have pretty much said. In fact, he even said they were the ones that convinced President Buhari to come into politics because of what OPC was doing, and they felt the North needed somebody to challenge Olusegun Obasanjo. But he also said this man seemed to have deviated. He went ahead to develop a bromance of some sort, or a romance of some sort, with people that were not in his own best interests, and his own personal weaknesses caused that slide. Because yesterday, I know in the North he's highly revered, but also we forget that leading up to the 2015 election, President Buhari was highly revered in the South also. In fact, he was one of those people that had a lot of goodwill. How come he lost it all? What happened?
Well, thank you, Rufai. And first, my condolences to Nigerians, my condolences to the family, and all those associated with former President Buhari. I think one thing that has to be said is the fact that he has lived a full life, and that he made his contribution undoubtedly. On the different divide, people will have their own interpretation. I try to be as much as possible very positive, and that in that context, my take will be to really concentrate. And I'm happy you laid the background in terms of the fact that I wrote a lot of open letters, memos to former President Buhari in terms of engaging leadership and trying to contribute to the development of Nigerian democracy. My honest take is that I think, if anything, and I have said this somewhere yesterday, that the paradox of late President Buhari, that his weakness is his strength. And what is that his weakness? His weakness is that he had this non-interventionist attitude, whoever he tolerates almost everything around him. And that appeared to be his strength, so that almost everybody could relate with him and he will accept him or her as part and parcel of him. And that became the bigger challenge. And in some ways, I will say that laid the ground of some of the major criticism around assessment of his leadership and what have you. I will emphasize, I want to concentrate on the politics. In terms of his politics, I think again, I'll concentrate more in terms of the later days, which is from 2012, 2013, leading to the merger. My take on all that is that to a large extent that merger was successful largely because of the fact that he submitted himself to the whole process, allow teamwork to take its course, and in the context of that, he subordinated his own personal ambition, which is about aspiring to become president. Throughout the period of the merger negotiation, that was never an issue. And that helped a lot in terms of what came to be the APC in 2013, 2014. And even after the emergence of the APC, again, he submitted himself, which is why some of us, in fact, I think I reflected that in many of my writings, that throughout that period, up to the time of the election, Buhari really was a team player, and that in the context of that, he accepted he didn't use his intimidating popularity to impose himself as the candidate of the APC. He went through primaries, and I think that gave a number of us hope. And I must say from the beginning that I was never one of those his diehard supporters. I was never part of his supporters until the APC came about. I was never with him in ANPP. I was never with him in CPC. In fact, when I decided to join partisan politics, I joined ACN. Largely because of my own reading, that there was a lot of opportunism. Many politicians joined his own party for opportunistic reasons, especially in the north, where I come from. Largely because they were not interested in his own victory as a politician. They are more interested in their own personal victory, which is about small constituencies, And that was my criticism. And I made the point that for me to join Buhari's party, I must be convinced that we can win the election at the presidential level, because it doesn't make sense to win election at smaller level, which was some of the challenges he had. And I think, for me, developing from there, one of the things I will want us to do really is to draw lessons. What is it that can be done better now that he's, first, politics, especially in northern Nigeria, can never be the same without Buhari. And in fact, since he left office, politics could never be the same, because the old tradition whereby people can go and just associate with him, and once he lifts their hand, it almost translates into electoral victory, was never the case once he left office. So what that means is that, and because of his popularity, many politicians who associate with him became extremely arrogant. The issue of developing relationship with citizens was not a priority to them, and they continued to talk down on people. The question of meeting expectation of citizens, again, isn't their priority. So.
While you're making that point, I just want to elaborate further in a similar vein, because you're speaking of, his popularity and how it attracted other people who may have not used that goodwill judiciously, if I may use that term. However, many people are saying that his death leaves a huge vacuum. Especially when we are looking at the dynamics with regards to northern politics, those that northerners listen to, who they follow, who they're waiting to get instruction from. What's your take on that position? Do you feel that a vacuum has been left, or do you think that, because based on your analysis, you feel that he had lost a lot of his goodwill?
Well, look. The truth about it is that even before his death, that vacuum was created. It was quite doubtful if before his death, he could influence electoral outcome in the old way, you know. Of course, people continue to respect him, which reflect in the fact that in the way even the funeral ceremony yesterday took place. I mean, he had those respect, no doubt about it. But in terms of influencing electoral outcome after his presidency is doubtful. Now, and that is my reference point. My reference point, and I have been raising that in the context of even our effort to build a coalition, which is drawing lesson from the experiences of APC, for instance. The only variation in the case of APC is the fact that we had parties that could negotiate the process. Now, in the present circumstances, all the parties are in crisis, and we can use their structures to negotiate the process. And the most important thing is to say, which is an advantage, we must use that very well in negotiating the current coalition. We don't have somebody with the kind of intimidating profile as that of late President Buhari in the coalition. And what that means is that all the leaders of the coalition need to be humble and acknowledge that they need one another. And in the context of that, develop strong teamwork. And I think that's the challenge we are all facing, having that leaders have a kind of team spirit, working together. That is the challenge. And if we want to succeed, and I mean, it's not about succeeding to just defeat APC and President Asuwaju, but succeeding to produce a new, fresh template, political template that will begin to meet the expectation of Nigerians. And I think in terms of that, my take on it, which is what I've been emphasizing, is the fact that we must try to build the party. And that is the aspect I will say that in the case of APC, while President Buhari was alive, late President Buhari was alive, we were unable to use that. And that was part of my frustration. We are unable to use the freedom he has given all leaders to develop the party. You know, instead, what happened is that the party was sacrificed. And that may have its root in terms of some of the initial missteps we have taken under APC. And one of such missteps, I will argue, was when, for instance, after the negotiation, the interim leadership under Chief B.C. Akande was changed with the new leadership under Chief Oyegun. Of course, I mean, the truth about it, the respect somebody like Buhari and all the leaders of APC had for Chief B.C. Akande was such that they could not ignore him. But in the case of Chief Oyegun, my interpretation is that they were already dynamic, because coming from ANPP, you know, where Buhari had to leave and form his CPC, there may have been dynamic which may have affected the relationship that weakened the capacity of the party under the leadership of Chief Oyegun to influence the government of late President Buhari. I think those are lessons we must learn. And once that is the case, in terms of building the party, therefore, in the case of the coalition, we must be able to ensure that once we get the right leadership that lead us to victory, that right leadership must be able to be retained and facilitate the process of managing the government produced by the party in such a way that the government is answerable to the party. When that is not the case, again, we may end up with another dynamics which may produce disappointing results. That will be my take on it.
Well, it's quite, I mean, it's very, very interesting to hear your insight on this, specifically because you've spoken quite out abruptly about your feelings about how the APC has changed over time. You talk about how it has moved closer to a monarchy, and you've talked about your issues with its leadership structure. So in the aftermath of the exit or the resignation of Abdullahi Ganduje, is that in your opinion, an example of perhaps the party moving in a direction that would be more in line with where you think the party should be going? How do you feel about the state of the APC now in the aftermath of his departure?
Look, first I must say, and I have said that somewhere before, I wasn't surprised about the circumstances leading to the departure of Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje. Because once you undermine agreement within the party, and once you allow yourself to be used to really weaken other section and weaken the issue of participation of, very good constituency within the party. You yourself, you made yourself vulnerable, you know. And my major issue is the fact that APC has crashed from a party with a lot of promises to almost a party that is more or less serving, its organs are more or less serving like midwife. You know, it's only when they have to produce leaders that the organs are convened. Now, all of a sudden, almost after close to a year without meetings, the NEC is being convened, and you can estimate that the NEC is convened purely to find replacement to Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje. The whole question of evaluating the performance of government the party has produced is not a priority to the party. And for me, this democracy is not useful so long as we are not engaging the whole question of evaluating performance of government. And when a party reduces itself to almost like a kind of cheerleader, singing praises of elected representatives they have produced, I mean, that party, we can do without it. We can as well just have a monarchy that everybody will have to accept. We can't do anything about it. Okay. So my honest view is that as much as we may be disappointed with APC, the lesson we must take away is how we build in such a way that we don't repeat the mistake APC has made, and we must ensure that advantages in terms of what has weakened us to put in place collective leadership at all levels, because at all levels of our democracy, whether at national level or at state level, there is no collective leadership. What you have, and that is the arrogance, for instance, of governors at state level. They say they are leaders of the party. They don't hold, most state governments don't hold executive council meetings. You know, the party organs don't function. So we need to really recalibrate this, our democracy, in such a way that first, we build structures of the party, you know, in such a way that it is engaging in critical evaluation of government they have produced, and they have capacity to discipline elected representatives and leaders of the party when they don't deliver based on the promises the party has made to citizens.
Okay, sir. Real quickly, I'd like to ask you this, and this is quite a deep one, and thank you for your insight. When the APC was cobbled together leading up to the 2015 election, I'm not sure President Tinubu just accepted to support that coalition for nothing. Was there anything agreed in the pie for him? And why was it when it was time for, based on convention, you might say, power to move back to the south, President Buhari of blessed memory was ambivalent about it, and it was even shocking that we saw candidates from the north vie in the APC primaries, despite the fact that the north was just completing its term.
I think, Rufai, I tried to avoid joining that debate about whether there was any promise made to President Asuwaju when the negotiation under APC was taking place. There was a lot of dynamic, a lot of free debate took place. People put their expectation forward. I think Chief B.C. Akande tried to capture that some of the issues in his memoir. But by my own recollection, that debate around the negotiation was engaged based on the liberal atmosphere of everybody to throw up their own, what do you call it, ambition or whatever you will define it. And one of the dynamic, I must say, and I'm not saying that to stir up any controversy. I'm saying that so that we really understand, the dynamic was such that there was free contest, and the contest was both ways. Yes, there was a recognition by all the leaders of the negotiation that led to the formation of APC that they need one another. And in the context of that, after APC was consummated, after APC was registered, what happened was that in the process towards campaigning to bring up candidates, leaders have different opinion. I mean, look, some of the things there were, of course, a written understanding, which was why I referred to the role, in fact, the critical role played by Chibisi Akande is being underplayed in the whole debate. Because Chibisi Akande was more or less like the magnet that pulled all the leaders together and kept them together. At some point, I mean, if people will open up, President Asuwaju had different view in terms of who should be the candidate of APC. And it was in that context that he even sponsored Senator Waziri Tambuwal to pick up the nomination form for president until I think the Southwest leaders, which may have been influenced by the position of Chibisi Akande, put pressure on Asuwaju to moderate himself. So some of those things happen. But I must say, which is the point I keep emphasizing, throughout that period, there was collective leadership. And there was also democratic control in the sense that debates were taking place. If I remember very well, because as somebody who was just appointed to serve as DG of governors, progressive governors, I was attending virtually all meetings. And meetings were taking place almost on a weekly basis. And whatever decision was taken was binding on everybody. That was how that process was managed. But I must say, immediately after election, that was also lost because meetings stopped taking place and everything gravitated. I think the process started getting lost in the whole negotiation for running mate. Because the reality, again, some of these accounts need to be put out in the public. Because the reality is that...
As we need to wrap up, do you feel a sense of betrayal against President Bola Tinubu now, that when it was his own time, he didn't get anything out of it? Yes or no answer quickly, or maybe in less than 30 seconds. Do you feel a sense of betrayal that the fact that even northern candidates even participate?
I think this is your question.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, sir. Quickly.
I think your question has been answered by the way a number of us rose up and opposed the so-called consensus candidate in APC. Okay. We rose up, we insisted there has to be equity. It's not just about Asuwaju. Our view is that the understanding is that after 8 years of late President Buhari, the presidential candidate of the party should go to the South. Okay. And a number of us, we mobilize ourselves and work in the party. And the truth about it is that we didn't care what was the position of late President Buhari.
Okay, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you.